Several Bahamians are stuck in Moscow, the opposition leader ringing off on the government, and a local business establishment in Village Road being robbed. Good evening, everyone. I'm Tyler Simonet with your JCN News for this Friday, March 4th. The Bahamas delegation to the CARICOM Heads of Government meeting in Belize, led by Prime Minister Philip Davis, is expected to return home today. Traveling with the Prime Minister is Foreign Affairs Minister Fred Mitchell, who informed us on Friday that there are several Bahamians that are facing challenges in Russia. He gave us this update.
A number of press inquiries came about Bahamian citizens and whether or not the Foreign Ministry is aware of any Bahamian citizens caught up in the events. In the last week, at least 4 people have been caught up in the events there, largely because they were in Moscow as a result of the cancellation of flights and the closing of airspace to Russian planes. They're now in problems. It is a difficult act to get out of Russia. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs is seeking to outreach to the families to see what, if anything, we can do at this stage to help their situations. Once again, this shows that relationships overseas count. There are scores of Jamaican citizens in Ukraine, for example, as students, and we know of at least one Bahamian student in Georgia, which is the country next door. All of them are on scholarships trying to better their lives, yet they're now caught up in a vortex of forces that are completely out of their control.
The appointment of businessman Sebastian as the Bahamas non-resident ambassador to Central America has caused a buzz on social media and in committees. Mr. Bastian joined the Prime Minister and his delegation in Belize. Mr. Mitchell explained what the government is expecting of Mr. Bastian.
We were joined yesterday by our new ambassador to the Central American country, Sebastian. It will be his job to use his considerable business skills in deepening outreach to the countries of Central America. These include Guatemala, Panama, Nicaragua, Honduras, El Salvador, and Costa Rica. This is a difficult neighborhood in which to operate. The Prime Minister indicated that deepening relations is an important priority for our country. Next year at this time, it will be the honor of the Bahamas to host the CARICOM meeting in the Bahamas.
Official opposition leader Michael Pintard now doubling down on his statement that the government's failure to renew the fuel hedging contracts with BPL and offshore petroleum dealers can and will have significant financial impact on the Bahamian public. Minister Pintard's statements come at a time when the cost of fuel is becoming more and more burdensome to everyday citizens due to the ongoing diplomatic conflict overseas.
The former administration left in place a hedging program which was really designed to lock in a price that worked for the government as well as worked for the consumers in terms of obtaining oil, and of course the public benefited in a significant way. The challenge we are having now is that this administration got advice from the outgoing board. Secondly, this present board agreed that hedging makes perfect sense. And in order for us to ensure that the government saves and the general public save, that the program ought to be continued. That program appeared to have been cancelled. As a result of the program being cancelled, then we now know that the additional costs that the public is about to face is a result of the government's failure to properly manage the hedge program.
Mr. Pintard also calls into question the details surrounding the release and retraction of the recent statement by Bahamas Power and Light that announced an immediate increase in fuel costs to be reflected in their monthly electricity bills. Mr. Pintard notes that this mistake could not have been made without prior approval from the minister responsible.
So a release of a statement by the CEO could not have happened unless that CEO got the blessing of the board and the blessing of the minister. The minister's retraction of that statement is clearly a result of someone higher than him. In this case, we believe the Prime Minister calling him and asking him to pull back the statement. So again, the question for the government is, how are you going to spare the public, really which will amount to the tens of millions of dollars, and spare the government the tens of millions of dollars of additional costs now that you have canceled the hedging program? We heard the Prime Minister's comments about wanting to find a way to do that. We are very much interested in what that way is. Since we know, according to the Electricity Act, the government is not empowered to stop the pass-through cost that will go to the consumers. They are restricted just by law in doing so. So the question is, what tricks does the Prime Minister and his colleagues have up their sleeve to now correct a horrendous mistake that they made in terms of canceling the hedge?
Now, Works Minister Alfred Sears told reporters on Tuesday that the matter of fuel costs was raised to him by BPL's chairman last week. He then had a brief conversation with the Prime Minister on the same. Minister Sears also told reporters that Cabinet has not approved anything pertaining to a rise in fuel costs on electricity bills. The opposition leader is calling on the government to make clear their plans to spare the Bahamian public the burden of the electricity hike. Police here in the capital are on the hunt for several armed robbers after a business establishment and its patrons were held at gunpoint and robbed of cash and other personal effects sometime around 7 p.m. on Thursday. Police press liaison officer Audley Peters in his report indicating that 3 males armed with firearms entered the establishment on Village and Bernard Road and ordered the patrons to the ground. They all complied to the suspect's demands. Now, one of the suspects stood watch at the door of the establishment while the others proceeded to search and rob the patrons. The assailants also robbed the cashiers of an undetermined amount of cash. They then made their escape running in the western direction. Luckily, none of the victims suffered any injuries during this incident. This matter remains under active investigation. Now, police say they are concerned about a recent spate of armed robberies that have been targeting businesses and drivers of small Japanese vehicles. They're appealing to you, the members of the public, to be aware of your surroundings and to exercise the necessary precautions while conducting business and traversing the streets as a motorist. You're also being encouraged to report suspicious individuals, activities, and vehicles. Police assuring the public that officers will spare no effort in their investigations of these matters and will seek to arrest and place the appropriate suspect or suspects before the court for each incident in an effort for creating a safer Bahamas. The Ministry of Education, Technical and Vocational Training is actively working on the teaching shortage on the island of Abaco. According to Minister Responsible Glenys Hannah-Martin, all schools across the country are open except for Patrick Bethel School in Abaco that's still fully virtual because of a lack of teachers.
And so we're seeking to address that. I mean, we have to call it what it is. That's the issue we're facing there. So we're now in active recruitment engagement to post teachers in Abaco. There's also a housing challenge in Abaco after Dorian. But we are seeking to meet all of those challenges to get teachers in Abaco. All the schools are open. They're all operating on a face-to-face basis. The challenge is that the Ministry of Health protocols are still in place. They've not been modified. They still require 3 feet between the students, etc., etc. As a result of that, we are now in a hybrid model where we are alternating each day, but every child should be in face-to-face during the course of the week.
When asked when the public can see teachers dispatched to islands like Abaco and even in the capital, the minister says this.
They're going through the public service system, and so as soon as we get the green light, they will be placed as we speak. I mean, the process is in progress. So as soon as it's completed, teachers will be in. We're just waiting for certain green lights through the system, which will get them into the classroom.
Though she could not give a timeline, Minister Hannah-Martin says the situation is very urgent and her ministry will continue to work. You're watching JCN News. Stay with us.